Good morning. Yeah, seems like I've got a little technical difficulty, but it's all good. We've got Vanita Hurbuns this morning. Good morning, Vanita.
Good morning, Jan. Good morning, everybody, or good evening, wherever you are.
Wherever you are. So, how is Auckland this morning?
Pretty dark. It's still very warm. It's getting drier, not so humid, but yeah, you can see the change. 1st of March, you could see that autumn starting. So yeah.
Yeah, and they say it's going to be a dry year this year, so it's a
Okay.
bit. It's going to be a
Yes.
bit different than every other year. So, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
So,
Tell people what you do for those who
okay.
don't know you.
Okay, for those who don't know me, I've been an immigration advisor for both New Zealand and Australia. In New Zealand for close to 10 years, for Australia close to 5 years. So I'm licensed. So I'm licensed to give advice for both countries. I also contract part-time as a CPD facilitator for our industry. And this is the professional development we need, which is a minimum of 20 hours a week. A year, 20 hours, not a week, 20 hours a year. I facilitate that and source presenters, also present as well, and we run workshops and masterclasses. So that's what I do. So it's quite
Okay.
a full-on busy job.
Yeah, I didn't know you guys had to do CPD points as well.
Oh, absolutely. 20 hours minimum. But easily, your CPD can take you to 80 hours, 100 hours, especially if you're, with all the changes and you're busy and you want to upskill, because that's what we need to do, right, Ian?
Oh yeah, you need to always be better than the next person.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There's a few hellos this morning from everybody listening to us. So,
Yeah.
Benita, changes in the immigration field. What is happening?
A lot. Let's just say we've been bombarded with a lot of changes. It's been keeping us very busy. So usually if somebody would call us up and say, oh, I've just got a quick question, can you answer this for me? Those questions are no longer quick. We need to get into so much detail to figure out exactly where people are. So this year has started off with literally a bang and a roar with the minister pretty much making announcements almost weekly, sometimes, a few announcements in that week. So the major changes is they announced the digital nomad visa, which is the glorified visitor visa, which allows you to work in New Zealand while you're holidaying.
Yeah.
That was started off, and obviously they're trying to attract people and the rich people to be able to come in and sort of work and boost the tourism industry.
Okay.
Then we've had a whole raft of changes afterwards. Morning, Mariska, how are you doing? I
Good
can't see you
morning.
in the camera.
I'll try and switch it a bit.
There you go. Perfect. So they started with. So I'll just go through them and we'll talk about them. And I'm happy to take questions from the audience just to sort of get an understanding of everything. So we've had the parent category announcement where they've changed the remuneration. So if you're sponsoring your parent, you just need to be aware of that. They've also increased the quota, and that was just a one-off quota increase as well. So if you need to talk about that, I'm happy to talk about that. So that was one bit. Then the big change was for the primary school teachers going on to the green list straight to residence. Now, again, that comes about on the 27th. Is it today? The 27th. I think it is. Sorry, it is too. They can apply for straight to residence. However, with the teachers, they work in a union. So there is a pay scale when it comes to a collective agreement or a union-based role. So not everybody's going to be earning the 3161. So they need to have a job offer. They need to have their qualifications assessed by the teaching council. And most of them need to have a Bachelor of Education or a Bachelor of Teaching to be able to have that assessed. Okay. So those with diplomas, you may not fall in that category. You may actually be on a tier 2 where you'll have the work to residence. So just be aware of that when you're doing that. But this is a good announcement because secondary school teachers are on the straight to residence. Now, primary school teachers, and if you have older sort of children and so on, this is a great way to sort of come in and have residence straight away and start from there. Let's see. We've had the active investor category announced and changes to that, where they've changed, they've removed the language barrier, and they've also said the investment needs to either be 5 million or 10 million. And you need to, so you don't need to be in New Zealand for a long period of time. You just need to meet certain criteria on that. Also, they've announced how to invest, so they've changed the way the investment happens. So it's not, so you can do the growth fund, or you can do a balanced portfolio of investment as well. So that is a lot of in-depth information as well on that. And that comes about on the 1st of April. Jan, you may be across some of this with your clients.
Oh, yeah. But it's quite interesting at the fact that they've raised the amount, eh?
Yes. That's because we're so poor. We're in so much debt, Jan, and you know that.
Do I understand correctly that they don't need to write the English test?
Yeah, the English test is gone. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, they don't need to meet massive amounts of living in New Zealand. Yeah, they can come in, come in for like a minimum amount of time.
Yeah.
So they can come in for a minimum amount of time, just make sure the investment stays. They can carry on being overseas if they wish to. So there's a lot of changes across that. And then we've had on the 17th of March, which was it last week or the week before? I can't remember. Sorry, the days just fly by.
Oh, yeah.
Where there's been health changes to dependent children. So those with severe health issues, like especially cognitive and learning difficulties, they won't be able to be allowed a health waiver. So their parents won't be able to support them at all with regards to coming to New Zealand. So if you have children within these sorts of areas, think very carefully about whether you want to make the move to New Zealand or not, because they won't be able to join you.
And the people that's already here, but that doesn't have residence at the moment?
That will affect their residents in the sense that they would need to require a health waiver for their children. They're obviously assessed on the severity of it as well. And the application could be declined if it's not addressed adequately. So just with these sorts of cases, especially when you need waivers, I would recommend you seek professional advice on those waivers, because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of preparation for that, because you've got to get doctor's reports, educator reports, or from specialist reports and so on, and that takes time. So be prepared and prepare well.
Yeah. And that is something that an immigration advisor can help you with?
Yes, an immigration advisor, or I should say an immigration practitioner, so a lawyer or an advisor. And they need to be, they should have done this before, or even if they haven't done it, they need to be able, the advisor needs to be able to seek advice from look, there's people in the industry that are very well, sorry, I've run out of English this morning, and my first language is English.
You already written the test, eh?
I did when I did my course for immigration. So those people, some advisors and lawyers are very knowledgeable, and they coach those people that want to get into this. So make sure you just you're able, to get somebody that's knowledgeable and will be able to advise you step by step on how to approach this. So
And I think it's always important to understand where an immigration advisor comes in, and also to find the importance of an immigration advisor. A lot of people tend to not see the need for one.
And I'm going to talk about that.
If it wasn't for one, I wouldn't have been here. That's
and
quite
this is not something that you can do without one.
Jeez, it's becoming so difficult.
With all the changes we've had and the amount of changes, because we've had massive changes in the AWV space, and that flows on to residents. And because we've had so many changes since 2022 till now, we've got to go back and assess how do you meet the policy from day one and carry on until maybe if you're claiming 6 points for 3 years of work experience, we've got to go through each one. Also, if you're on work to residence, Did you have job changes? Did you stop working for a period of time? How does that affect your residence going forward? So there's a lot of case studies and so on where people have actually lodged, for instance, after 24 months, they've gone work to residence. Yes, I'm eligible. I'm going to apply, especially those where the fees were increasing on the 1st of October last year. They applied, and now they're finding that they were short maybe a day or 2 days or even 4 days because of different things that may have happened, and their applications are being declined. So they lost that 2 or 3 grand. I can't even remember how much it was. And now they've got to pay $6,500 again to lodge. So that's been costly mistakes for people, and they will slowly see that coming through. So, so the biggest change we've had is in the AWV space, which was announced recently and effective 10th of March. Massive changes in there. Yeah. Do we have any questions before I move on?
I've got a question. I read about this on Facebook this past week. A guy's just launched his residence. So everything's on there, and then he lost his job.
Yeah.
So what now?
I know, and that's what's happening to a lot of people. So immigration assesses the application at the time you submit the application, or at the time of lodgement, I should say, and at the time when they assess it. So there's 2 periods. So you have to meet both. So at the time he lodged, he was employed. At the time of the assessment, when you have a case officer, he's unemployed. Now, that's where he fails it because he no longer holds an offer of employment or employment. Now, what do? Immigration could either possibly defer it for him to find a job. How long does it take to find a job? We don't know because immigration haven't given us prescriptive information on that. So it could take him 2 weeks. It could take him 3 months. Will immigration wait? It could even take him 6 months. What does he do? And this is where the thing is, and they could potentially decline that application, saying you don't hold a job offer or are in employment with an accredited employer. And that's the sad part.
Let's say he does get a job. So he's got to do the variation of conditions. Is that still a thing?
Correct. Yes, you still have to do the variation. So if he gets a job, he does a variation to this new accredited employer. Then what's going to happen is because depending if he's claiming points, like 6 points, and that's work experience. Now, say, for instance, if he was unemployed for maybe 9 weeks as an example, that means he's got 9 weeks of not being employed. So that means it affects his 3 points and how he's claimed his 3 points for work experience because he didn't have employment during that time. So you can't claim that time because you have to be employed throughout that period of the 3 points you're claiming. So that's where all the technicality comes in, and you got to calculate it.
Will he just have to wait? Let's say if he was unemployed for 3 weeks, would he just have to wait for 3 weeks or work 3 weeks longer? Or would he have to work everything?
Work 3 weeks longer. So you won't apply exactly on that 3rd year. You would apply, you'd add buffers in, and that's what you need to take into account. The problem we're facing now, and this is a new territory for a lot of immigration practitioners, is the employment law for New Zealand, because we've never dealt with employment law and we're not employment lawyers. So there's a lot of little things that happen, because there's continuous employment that you need to meet. And what does that mean? What happens when you take leave in advance or unpaid leave or on ACC, which is a grey area for us, which we've inquired with immigration, and we're waiting for them to clarify with us how these things are going to be treated for claiming points and how that works for somebody. So there's a lot of grey area for us. And if it's a grey area for us and we have access to all this information, it's a lot of grey area for those people doing it on their own.
Yeah. And strange enough, now you say that once they go in ACC and they claim, they're actually not working.
Correct. And we don't have clarification from immigration as to how, yes, they're still employed because ACC pays 80%. The employer may top up 20% or may not. Then what happens with the salary, or that you need to be earning, for instance, that drops, how is immigration treating that? Then with skilled work experience, if you're out of work for maybe 3 months or 6 months or whatever because of ACC, then what happens with your work experience? Are they recognizing, that period of time? Do we add it on afterwards? How is it working? So there's a lot of things that's unknown to us, which we're seeking clarification on from immigration.
But it's interesting times. I mean, you need to learn a bit more. That's
absolutely, and that's why it's been. Look, I love this job because no 2 days or no day is the same. You're always getting curveballs. You're always getting things. You're always learning. And if you're not learning, that's where you're probably going to have a problem. Is there any questions before?
No real questions coming in. Just a lot of people saying hello, Trevor, and Vanessa saying hello, and so forth.
I just want to ask, with regards to the parental visa, you said that the amount that you need to be able to sponsor or something changed. How much do you need to earn now for your parents?
So there's a table where you need to be earning or meeting the remuneration to support parents. So like whether it's one person, whether it's two people. So it's they're using the new median wage, which is $33.65, I think. So don't quote me on that. Around about that, or is it 56? I can't remember. Sorry, and I didn't even write it down. So that's a new median wage that they're using, and they're calculating it from a certain date. So there's the old median wage, and then there's a new median wage. So you sort of need to see where you stand, and if you're meeting that, you've got to meet it throughout until your parents are invited to apply for the visa. Okay. So just make sure you're meeting that throughout. So coming to that, the median wage has changed on the parent category, but it hasn't changed in the accredited employer work visa or residence. Okay. And we're waiting for announcements around this. So we've had a lot of changes in the accredited employer work visa space. So the 10th of March was where they've said, okay, a whole lot of changes are coming through. And this is patch upon patch upon patch. And this is where it becomes so unclear for a lot of people. And that's why we have to work back and work on a timeline. So immigration have removed the median wage, which was $29.66 per hour. And what they've introduced a market rate. But the market rate will change between region to region, industry to industry, and this is going back in the old essential skills, the way we used to work. What was market rate? Okay. So there is a minimum wage, and the minimum wage will change. And 1st of April is next week. So the minimum wage is $23.50, which is next week, 1st of April. So you need to be earning above the minimum wage. However, you need to be earning market rate for your role. Yes. So there's a test for that. So employers no longer need to meet the $29.66, which is good for employers, but it's bad for you. Okay. Yeah. It's bad for you because residents right now, you have to apply for residents, you have to be earning $31.61 per hour. So if an employer is going to offer you, say, $28, and you go, yes, I've got an accredited employer work visa for 5 years, how are you going to get to $31.61 over a period of time? Yeah. So that is the issue that we are now facing. Also, so this is where you really need to work with somebody who knows what the market rate is, and then obviously if your employer goes, okay, I'm going to offer you $32 an hour, and say that market rate for that role is not $32, that market rate pays $29, immigration is going to start questioning you on that. Why is the employer offering you this amount? Because it's ruling out Kiwis, it's, or it's been disadvantaged to Kiwis, it's been disadvantaged to employers in the industry. So these are all the questions that are going to
a lot of things that they look at. Yeah.
But what if the roles are as such that you can demand a higher than market?
Then it's not a problem. Then it's not a problem because the market will dictate that. But it's for it because right now, Jan, we have a high employment rate. We have people out of work. We're trying to get New Zealanders into jobs, right? So previously, when we used to go market rate, employers used to sort of inflate those wages to remove New Zealanders from the market and inflate the skills that they wanted and so on. So now what they've done is they've said, right, minimum work experience required is 2 years. Okay, but ANSCO says 3 years. Okay, so you go in, okay, you need 2 years, so you're going to get the Kiwis applying. But if you're going to ask in your job advert for 3 years or 5 years, immigration, you're going to say, why? We only need 2 years, you know? So again, that's a problem. And then also when you go for residence, you need to meet ANSCO. So there's a lot of there's differences. So it's like, how do you do that? So, and you've got to do that very carefully so you don't rule out New Zealanders. But you also, if you want a migrant, you need to make sure you're advertising in the right space, not ruling out anybody at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. And if you get someone with 2 years experience, but they don't have the experience, how do you employ someone that don't have the experience? It's a difficult one.
Yes, so that's all the 10th of March that's come through. So, and then for unskilled roles, that's our ANSCO level 4 and 5, you don't need to go to the Ministry of Social Development anymore to get a skills match report and advertise with them. Or I should say, the employer doesn't need to show that information, but they still need to be doing that, because immigration is not requiring that information, but they can do spot checks and say, have you advertised here? Have you looked at those people, New Zealanders first that are looking for work before you're employing this foreigner to come in?
Yeah. All right. I've got a question. Let me see. Vanita, is New Zealand immigration being reactive with the demands for skilled individuals?
When you say reactive, look, they've been very strict and they're applying this across the board. Okay. So they are questioning everything, even people who are applying for their maximum continuous stay. That's an additional 2 years. If they've got a 3-year work visa, they are requesting information. We have to provide complete applications as well. They're not being very generous with extensions, documents that are missing. They are saying we need this, because I think they have an SLA to make sure that they need to be assessing applications within a certain time frame. Because if you recall, it was taking 15 weeks, to be granted a work visa. Now they're saying you need to have all your ducks in a row. So they're not being reactive. They've been very proactive, and they are asking for the information. So you need to provide that straight away.
That's a good one. I don't know if you got the answer, but it says, losing skills to AU. What else is NZ government doing to catch up?
Unfortunately, we are losing a lot of skills to Australia. What are they doing? Look, I have a lot of opinions, but I'm not going to share that.
Not allowed to say them here.
I think what's happened is, because when the borders opened, we allowed so many people without being assessed properly to come in. We actually have a problem now. We have a lot of unskilled people taking up roles for New Zealanders. And that's the reason why we have such a high unemployment. So they're trying to clean that up and trying to make sure that only the skilled people are in New Zealand, so that New Zealanders are in jobs, before they look at migrants. So that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I'm just scared that they're losing all the people that's skilled. And we're going to...
The minister is aware of it, especially with trades where they have no pathway to residence at the moment. She even made a comment, said we are going to lose some people and we are aware of it, but we need to get the policies right, because we can't just do a little change and then it's not good enough and they've got to do a change upon a change upon a change. And that's what they're working toward. So they are working on a new pathway for trades, but we don't know what that's going to look like until they announce it.
Yeah.
Wayne Stradham asking, what are the rules around IELTS tests for the accelerated path to residence for teachers on the green list? Are teachers with English as home language exempt?
No, they still need to meet the requirements for English. Those requirements for teachers are have not been removed. The only exemptions are if you studied and worked in different countries. Those are the exemptions. But the same rules apply. It just means that you can go faster on a faster pathway to residence. Yeah.
Right. Then we've got a comment here saying, to immigrate now to New Zealand is going to be very difficult.
It is difficult, and if you don't have qualifications or you're not going to be earning the high remuneration, I would really ask you to maybe wait for, when I say qualifications, like a degree as such, because that's what's currently being looked at. Wait for the announcement for the trades maybe, and then see what your pathway looks like. Because right now, just coming in on work experience is already difficult. To find a job is already difficult. So being sort of here for like 5 years and having the stress of this hanging on you, going, I may not be able to stay here long term. You know, you need to be aware of that's a reality right now.
Yeah. I've got just somebody saying, Andries Graaf saying, paper qualifications cannot make up for practical experience in the trade.
No, that's true.
That is
not as
so
yet.
true. That is so true, but you still need some papers somewhere along the line.
Yes, exactly. Not as yet. You've got to wait until they come through. I mean, they've done some consultations and so on, so we're waiting. But as I said, when they announce this as well, they don't want to do a patch policy, and I think they're very aware of the patch policies that we've had. They want to do a policy that's you know, fit for a long time. So let's just hope that will come through soon. Looking at the other changes, so what they've done is they've increased the years of the I should say the duration of the skill level 4 and 5 AWV visa. So initially they only said 2 years, but now they've said now you can get a 3-year work visa. So those people that are on the 2 years, they can apply for the additional third year. But they will need to provide new police certificates and everything else, which becomes a real pain, especially for those people right now on the 3-year accredited employer work visa. They've got to produce more documents again. So, it's just unfortunate that, you know, we've had patchwork policy that's done this, you know, to a lot of people, and it's a more cost as well to them.
I've got a question on police clearances.
Yes.
I find this quite interesting.
Yeah.
So the guy does a police clearance in South Africa, arrives in New Zealand, hasn't done anything bad. He doesn't go back or doesn't leave the country at all for 3 years.
Yeah.
Now he's got to give in a new police clearance from South Africa.
Correct. Yes. It is the way policy is, and it's always been so. So the way police clearances work is when you submit a police clearance on a temporary visa, or I should say on any application, it is valid for 24 months, and that police clearance expires. So that's the reason why you've got to do a new fresh police certificate, even on residence, because it's got to be within the 6 month, you know, the stamp date on the police certificate. When you apply for residence, it has to be submitted within that 6 month period. If it's expired, they won't accept it, even though you have not left the country as well. So so that's unfortunate that police certificates, you know, that's something that new that they do. The thing is, though, with New Zealand, we don't request the New Zealand police certificate because immigration get that from New Zealand police. Yeah. Because other countries request that, and you have to pay that extra cost. We don't have that. It's just from your country of birth, and every country you've lived in for 12 months or more since the age of there's different criteria for it since the age of 17. So sometimes even if you've worked in another country, and some nationalities do this, they have to go to those countries and produce those police certificates as well.
Sure.
So, when you say you've got to live in those countries for 12 months or more.
12 months or more, but like the temporary visa right now says if you're age 17 and you've lived in any other country for 5 years or more, you've got to produce a police certificate. So if you've worked for 5 years in like the Middle East, you've got to go in, and those police certificates are difficult to get. So you've got to be prepared for all of that, and immigration will not give you extensions to get those police certificates because those are mandatory documents. So this is where they're not being reactive. They've been very proactive in telling you, get your shit together and provide all that information. So is it
Last
okay?
Question. If I may ask, this comes from Vanessa Moller. My husband is a qualified telecommunication technician for 26 years. Is he skilled for New Zealand or not?
Well, he will be skilled in terms of work experience, but if he has no papers, then it's how do you get points, or which category do you fall under? So because he may have 26 years of work experience, he could be on the 1.5 of median wage or 200% of median wage. So he has a pathway to residence. But if he's not, then without papers or like a bachelor's degree, he won't have a pathway. And that's unfortunately the sad part of it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hey, we try to help everybody, but it's not always possible.
No. So that's why I would say, really do an initial assessment, but don't do a free one, because a free one tells you absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You need somebody to go in depth into what you have, what you need, how to go forward. That's what the guidance you need. So looking at the changes as well, they've increased the threshold, or I should say, to support dependent children. So the main applicant needs to be earning 55,844 per annum to be able to support a dependent child. Now that equates to 26.84 per hour based on a 40-hour work week. So if, for instance, you have an employer saying you can have an accredited employer, market rate is $25 or $25.50 or whatever. Here's, we're offering you the job, and, they can't find any New Zealanders to do that job. Bear in mind, you won't be able to support your dependent children to New Zealand.
Yeah.
So those are the little things that have changed.
Yeah.
They've also added 11 extra roles where they've said this is a skill level 4 role, but we're looking at it as a skill level 3 role, so a skilled role. So they've added those roles in there, and they've said that that's what we're looking at as well. So, And then if you're on an interim visa, if you've had work rights in April, the changes will come through. So with interim visas, you weren't able to work, depending, like if you were changing visas and so on. Say, for instance, as an example, if you were on a partner visa and you had work rights and you're applying for a different type of visa, like, for instance, an accredited employer work visa being the main applicant for whatever reason, there was no work rights involved in that if you had an interim visa that came in. Now, if you had the work rights, you'll be able to carry on working until your visa's approved.
All right.
So when we changed visas before, we didn't have that, but now we are able to get that.
Vanita, thank you very much. I think we should have you on for another
you still
morning.
Have a lot to say.
Oh gosh! Oh my God!
Time is gone. 20 minutes has just flown by.
Look, to the people out there, if you're really unsure, even if you're in New Zealand and you're going for residence, I would really recommend, it's such an important part. It's, you are changing your entire life by getting residence and living in the country long term. Yeah. It's an important step. Please treat it with importance. And if you're unsure of where you stand, seek advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so important.
I feel very strongly that this is not something that you
can do yourself,
that you can even think you can do. Not with all the changes and all the different.
We've had so much.
Oh.
We're tired of the changes, believe me. And I mean, when the changes come, they're like 45 pages, and you've got to go through each one and check where it's changed, then go back and see, for clients, how that affects them. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. So yes, thank you.
But I just still feel I have someone on your side. Otherwise, you're really going to struggle.
Vanita, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have to pop off and go to a different meeting as well this morning. So I'm going to love and leave you all.
Yes, thank you, Vanita.
Next week, same time, same place, hey?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, hey.
Bye.
Okay.